in that they implement a consignment agreement. So what this means is the warehouse will have a lot of new capacity, and they can invite suppliers to have a lot of their inventory there owned by the supplier, and whenever Eaton needs the supply, they'll pull it out of consignment there, again, reducing the amount of risk in the inventory that Eaton has in their books. And then we also believe that the warehouse will sustain long-term growth. We noticed that the electrical products division grew from $4 billion in revenue to $7 billion in revenue in the past year. So we believe the warehouse is the best option for this. So you might be saying, why another warehouse? We already have a couple of warehouses. So we take a further look into the analysis, or to the data that was provided, and we see that first, Warehouse 87, who has a lot of the variable or a lot of the variety of parts that these solution centers need from that warehouse, hasn't been providing a lot of the service to them. We see that in the orange section, or I mean the yellow section of the pie chart, which is relatively small. So Warehouse 87 is not a solution. And then we also see the gray part of the pie chart, which is the others. That means that a lot of Eaton supply has been shipping back and forth, and it just creates a lot of complexity. And this is a lot of premium shipment that is being creating a lot of waste to what would be a lean manufacturing if we had a warehouse. So along with implementing the warehouse, we recommend not buying the property, but leasing the property. So to put a couple of numbers and get a reference, we took what it would, we took this chart in the bottom right corner and saw what it would take, or how much cost it would take for the different options we analyzed. And we see Phoenix is one of the top players in this area. So now to explain a little bit further into the logistics and the transportation costs, I invite Javier.
Thank you, Rodolfo. So now that my colleagues have talked about how we want to use this warehouse, I'm going to talk about where the optimal position to place this warehouse would be. So we go back to our original mandate and our original goal, which is to reduce premium freight costs. So we, how can we reduce this premium freight cost? Well, in our analysis, we found out that 62% of premium freight cost is being assumed by 7 different locations, which are all in the West Coast. These locations are Dallas, Denver, Houston, LA, Phoenix, San Francisco, and Seattle. So we believe that by concentrating and having a warehouse in one of the 7 locations, we can find a long-term solution to our high premium freight cost. So between these 7 locations, how do we decide on which one exactly do we want to locate? Well, we first calculated the transportation cost based on last year's numbers. So based on the dollar amount of purchases from the previous years, we converted that to pound amount. We multiplied that by the LTL rate, and then we multiply that by the distances between where we want our warehouse and the different locations. So as you can see, these are the results we came out with, and there are 2 clear favorites which minimize the transportation cost based on last year's purchase volume, and they are Los Angeles and Phoenix. The difference is only $6,000, so it's very small. So we went further and considered some additional factors, like the fact that in Los Angeles there's already a warehouse, that Phoenix has lower labor costs and lower leasing costs as well, and finally, the fact that the cities around Phoenix do not have solution centers yet. So we believe that under our goal of future expansion, having a warehouse in Phoenix can serve more possible sites. So taking all this into account and weighing our average, we have decided to recommend that the optimal location to build our warehouse is in Phoenix, Arizona. Now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Jim, who's going to talk about our implementation plan. Thanks.
So before executing our proposal, so first you need to do a further detailed evaluation of this project to see whether our proposal conflicts with other ongoing projects within Eaton, whether this project is financially feasible, and also you need time to gain management approval on this project. So this process is going to take approximately 1 month. So after the decision is made, then you can start reviewing and redesigning the Kanban system, and you can start finding, searching a warehouse on the West Coast, and you can start developing external suppliers and building relationships with consignment partners. So this reviewing and redesigning Kanban system can take 2 months, and hopefully by the end of 5th month, we can have a warehouse established, a strong relationship with our suppliers and consignment partners. So following on, we can start deploying the inventories to the designated sites. So this is going to take a month. We believe that this whole process can be finished within 6 months, providing all the resources we can have. To implement our strategy, there are a couple of factors you need to think about. First, always is the economic condition. Once the economy slows down, it can negatively impact the demand for Eaton's services. So a major warehouse on the West Coast may be unnecessary. And to hedge that risk, we suggest you to enter into a short-term lease contract. And you need to know, you need right management team to to execute this project. And a good horse needs a good jockey. And finally, there will be coordination problems. You are implementing a new strategy, and also you need to satisfy all the demands from all the sides. And to summarize it all, and we believe leasing a warehouse on West Coast can help you reduce shipping costs, and to help you control inventory, and to help you achieve long-term success. And that's our presentation. Thank you very much. Now we are very happy to answer any question that you may have.
I have a question. So if we're adding a warehouse into our network, one would assume that it's going to be a permanent change to our network. So it's going to be there for a while, at least that's the expectation. So why lease instead of buy?
Well, first of all, if you want to build a warehouse, it requires a large investment, and it takes a longer time. Because Eaton is experiencing short-term problems too. So if we can build that warehouse as soon as possible, why not? Leasing is the most viable option here.
Question. Adding the warehouse will position your inventory closer for longer term resupply, and I think addresses the transportation issue. What do you feel, and what would you suggest that approaches the challenge of days on hand of inventory?
First of all, we are developing external suppliers base, and also we are finding consignment partners. So, and we strongly suggest you to review the current Kanban system, because it was designed 6 years ago, and with a major warehouse on the West Coast, it changes in the supply chain quite a bit. So with those methods, we think that it can address that inventory problem.
Would it make more sense for the individual sites just carry more inventory instead of building a central warehouse?
That kind of goes back to the pie chart that we were kind of the gray area. So that gray piece of the pie chart represents a lot of that inventory kind of moving back and forth between sites, which makes the network more inefficient. So if we're trying to move towards, like Peter was mentioning earlier, an agile network, or trying to move that direction, we're trying to implement less complexity, make it more efficient in that sense. And then we have all those areas with more inventory, and then if our inventory goes up, then that looks better on our balance sheet and kind of pulls that direction.
Sure. How about the manning for this warehouse? Who would be at the helm, so to speak?
The man, can you clarify? You mean the staff?
For the warehouse, who's going to run this warehouse?
It would be an existing manager within we'd also want to ensure that they also have an understanding of the mismatch of the existing supply chain. Someone who's maybe has a little more fresh perspective but does understand how the existing supply chain works.
In addition to that, so as Gene had mentioned a little bit, it's important to establish a strong project team around this and to have the high management support and clear expectations from the beginning. So that in the implementation, that first part, that first month, that's where we get a lot of that clear. So we go into this project not kind of going different directions. We have that set base and that set of goals that we're aiming towards.
You have a minute and a half. Thank you. Can we call the next team?
Good evening, and thank you for giving us another possibility to present our solution for Eaton to achieve sustainable growth through supply chain network optimization. We are the supply chain management expert team, and that is Lucas Brenner, Editai, Patrick Hartlanger, and myself, Tiffany Bentler. So today, I'm going to give you a quick overview of the current situation and the problem it is facing and the recommendation. Then I have Lucas and Andrew diving into the analysis, and Patrick will conclude this with an implementation plan and a timeline. So, there you can see an overview of the Eaton Corporation. For the scope of this presentation, we will only be focusing on the electrical sector. So let's have a look of the supply chain network of this electrical sector. Basically, in this map, the green stars depict the plants of this electrical sector network. And all of the black stars are the CMCS sites, which are supplied by the plants, but are also producing specialized orders. And they get things from two warehouses on the east and the west. However, when there's a stock out, they order from up to 12 different suppliers. And this brings us to the challenges, because there is frequent stock out, especially on the west coast, and the performance between east and west is not level. Also, the warehouses are not dedicated to the electrical sector, so there is no priority. If you look further at the problem, we believe for Eaton it's important to have short-term and long-term growth. And in the short term, we think days on hand inventory should be reduced, as well as air freight shipments, and on the long run, we really want to sustain long-term growth. So how are we going to do this? For the short term, we recommend to optimize inventory levels for all CMSC sites, and this would give us a financial impact of 2.49 million in savings. Also, we want to decrease air freight shipments. In the long run, we recommend to add warehouse space on the West Coast and to strategically source from 2 to 3 close by suppliers only, which would give us additional savings of 3.72 million. And how we got to these recommendations, I will now hand over to Luke.
Thank you, Tiffany. So basically there are two short-term measures. The first one is to reduce the air freight. So if you have a look on the upper right graph, we see that the air freight makes in volume terms only 8% out of the whole, but costs like 30% of the whole costs. So how can we reduce the air freight in the short term? We tackled the 3 largest causes of the air freight, which are Chicago, LA, and San Francisco. They are all, if you see the bars, above the average, and they have a high ratio of air shipment in terms of normal shipment. So how can we tackle them? First of all, we should send in specialized inventory and transportation expert teams into these plants to leverage quick wins. Secondly, we should redesign the sourcing policy around these plants, source more locally, so to speak. And lastly, the experts should help these plants to better plan ahead to prevent these rush orders. All this could decrease in the short run the air freight costs. However, this is only in the short run to support this measure. The real effective measures to battle this are coming in the long run, which we'll Andrew talk about. So the short-term measure number 2 will be reducing the inventory in these sites. How are we going to do this? We will utilize the periodic inventory system, which is currently at 3 days. This means every 3 days, one CMSC can order their goods. By doing so, we can calculate an optimal order quantity, an optimal inventory level, by saying the demand during the period divided by 2 plus the safety stock. We come up with a number which is way lower for the optimal inventory than the actual inventory is. So reducing it down to the optimal inventory level would free $1.6 million in holding costs. So almost $1.7 million can be saved by only having the optimal inventory level in these 16 sites. Additionally, we can cut down the time which is in between the receivable of the order and the shipment out of the plant, which is currently 2 days. We can cut this down to 1 day, which will also be a small quick win for us. However, we can offer you an even better solution. Option number B would mean that we increase the period, which is currently 3 days, to 6 days. Why should we do this? This is kind of counterintuitive because this would increase our inventory level a little bit, but by extending this time when you order, the CMSCs, they can aggregate more demand. So they need more goods to be shipped to them. By doing so, we can strongly reduce the LTL rate, which is quite high right now because the utilization of the trucks is not given. So with this strategy, we can utilize the LTL rate, and we can at the same time decrease the inventory level as is depicted in the waterfall on the lower right side. So this is 1.5 million out of cost cuttings from the inventory level, and close to 1 million we save through the LTL reductions, which is a total saving of 2.5 million. On the next slide, we depicted it very visually based on a period of 6 days, how it would affect the optimal inventory level. You see in the gray the actual inventory, and in the blue our optimal inventory level, which is largely lower. And on the lower part, you see the days of inventory on hand, which reduces from 39 days to only 8 days, even with a P of 6. So we'll switch to the long-term measures, and I'll hand over to Andrew here.
Okay, thanks, Lucas. The first longer-term option that we looked at was adding a couple of CMSCs, and I think that's something that you're already considering. And that would be great because it would give you more local presence, a little bit more flexibility with changing local demands, some easier to customize. But the issue we see is it doesn't really seem to tackle the root cause of the current supply chain problems. And we think it could actually make those problems worse. And the reason for that is right now there's 16 CMSCs that are sourcing materials from just over 12 suppliers, main suppliers. And it's not an issue that there isn't enough CMSCs, it's an issue that everybody's sourcing from all the suppliers. And so you go to one supplier to get your materials, and you find out they're already servicing someone else's needs, so you have to pretty soon source from somewhere across the country or Puerto Rico. And really the issue is not that there isn't enough CMSCs. So we would like to look at some other things to improve the supply chain, and then in the future, when the demand grows, you'll have a more robust, more scalable supply chain that you can build on. So the next option we looked at was really redesigning the supply network and trying to optimize it to have a lot lower costs. Right now, it's pretty ad hoc, and each of the CMSCs, again, are sourcing from all of the suppliers. So what we tried to do was remove as much of the air freight as possible, to remove all of the supply coming from Puerto Rico, which is all air freight, and then another category, which is a lot of small quantity orders to external suppliers. And so we optimize it, and we're able to basically have now each CMSC sourcing the materials from only 1 or 2 plants, and it saved a lot because it's nearby plants, so transportation costs went down 1.38 million estimated, and then by cutting out the air freight, that saved another 2.3 million approximately. So overall, optimizing the network would save close to 3.7 million. On the next slide, just want to give you a quick overview. Won't spend long here, but on the left you see all the CMSCs, all 16 of them, and the top row is where they're currently getting all their demand supplied. And the numbers in the middle are really just pounds. The top row is supplying the left-hand column. And before, everybody was supplying everybody, so there was solid numbers throughout this chart. And now you can see it's very simplified. On the top row, Atlanta, they're getting all their demand supplied from South Carolina. And South Carolina plant is only supplying 3 CMSCs. So it's very simplified on both the supplier side and on the CMSC side. The transaction costs should go down, in addition to the costs we've already talked about, just because there's not as many orders taking place, and the plants don't have to supply to as many of the CMSCs. So on the next, we also looked at optimizing the network again, but this time trying to cut out all of the Eaton plants that are not dedicated just to electrical. And to meet that capacity would be adding small warehouses around the country. We estimated about 9 warehouses would take care of the capacity of eliminating the main Eaton plants. But the issue here is, although there's an extra 0.6 million approximately in savings, you have to then either build or buy 9 warehouses, and the cost benefit doesn't really seem to be there for no more than the savings from the last option that we talked about. So we're not recommending to add 9 different warehouses, just a little bit of warehouse space. I think I forgot to mention that on the last slide. A little bit of warehouse space in LA and optimizing the entire network. So now Patrick's going to talk a little bit more about how to implement this.
So ladies and gentlemen, every good strategy, every good idea is worth nothing if you can't implement it, and therefore I will talk you shortly through the implementation. First, what we see as one of the big issues is the organizational change. We have to take care of several issues with regard to our employees and changes. This is mainly in the beginning, we need clear roles and responsibilities for each and every unit in our network. For example, the plants have to know what they do. The CMSCs have to know what is their job. So we really want to clearly define that from the beginning. The second one is that we want to standardize the production transportation priorities. Currently, we have, for example, the problem with the Eaton plants, that they don't really prioritize any products they get from the electrical sector. We want to change that through having some clear written down policies that enable to prioritize orders based on size, based on customer importance and financial implications. And the last one is very important, a centralized organization of the procurement. We think that we can save a lot and that it is much easier if we centralize the whole procurement instead of having it locally, that one central team manages this and really takes care that it's the optimal solution. On the next slide, we show shortly how we want to implement that. I guess this is already shown in our option, our measures. Of course, we will have some risks with this strategy. One might be the high initial investment, but we recommend not to buy a warehouse in LA, but rather to focus on renting one. Then in short, sum up the whole presentation. At the end, we recommend that you optimize the inventory level for all CMCs, that you reduce the air freight and that you increase the utilization for the RTLs, which would give you a cost saving of 2.5 million. And in the long run, we recommend to build a new warehouse in LA with a cost and optimize the network with a cost saving of 3.7 million. Having that said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here today, and I would like to open the floor for questions.
On the two inventory alternatives that you were looking at, would they possibly both be doable? Could it become a tool to have variable pricing for customers? You know, between the 3 and 6 day thing? Would that enable to go out there and say some customers, you know, would want things in a particular way? Would that impact your delivery? And if it did, would some people be willing to pay premium or less if it takes a few more days?
That is at the end kind of a trade-off between making it more simple, reducing complexity, and this is part of our strategy right now, making it more simple, and then of course giving the customer what they want. I think at the end it would be possible to have it, but we can probably not achieve the cost savings that we show right here because it's more complex and like we have to decide which one to use when, and this is kind of increasing costs.
And I mean, we want to increase responsiveness, or it would be always great to increase responsiveness so we don't stock out. And if you have 6 days of a period to order, this would be probably not beneficial to the responsiveness, since some customers who orders like at this day and then we need at least 5 days till we get it to the order next time. So this will increase the order time, but we could also stock a little bit more. We could increase the service level. We made calculations like if we have a 99.9% service level, our inventory would increase by at around 30%, our optimal inventory level, which is way, if you show the next slide, the optimal inventory level, even if you increase this, we would still be way below the current inventory level.
Any other questions?
I guess if you have more questions, yeah, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thanks a lot.
Nobody else can.
So on this, the blue stars are the CSMS, sorry. The two one are the plants there, and then there is the distribution center in the east. And there are three warehouses. So you can see there is a big one on the east coast, a small one in Dallas, and a middle one in Los Angeles. So the three options that are given to us, first of all, is to open one or two new CMSC. So the blue, as I was saying, represent the CMSC, so they're mostly concentrated in the east, and our decision will be based on the demand. Second option is to build a major warehouse, as there is already one on the east. It would probably be on the center or the west side, depending on demand. And the third option is to expand plant storage of the CMSC. That's what done for Dallas, next to Texas. You can see there is a small warehouse that was done for the CMSC. So now to our recommendation. We recommend to build a second option, which is build a major warehouse. We decided to build it in the west. Looking at the data, there is a high demand in the west part that's not answered well because there is a problem with the utilization of the rate of the warehouses. And Los Angeles is the center with distance, and we're going to explain why we chose Los Angeles later on. The pros for choosing to build a major warehouse is it reduces air shipment costs. It lowers the inventory level on the regional west side. It lowered the utilization rate overall of the current warehouses. So W34 is the warehouse that's in the east, and W87 is the warehouse in the west, and both of them have currently a utilization rate of 0.9%, which is, 90%, which is very high. It will also reduce the fluctuation of the whole supply chain by using a pooling system, as we'll explain, and increase the service level. So now, we also studied option 1 and 3. Option 1 was to build one or two new CMSCs. So the pros of this option was increased responsiveness and reduce regional logistics costs. But this option basically increases the overall inventory, which is contrary to our objective, which is to reduce the overall inventory. And also it didn't impact the air shipment costs and did not change the warehouse utilization rate, which is high. The other option which we studied was build a plant next to a CMSC. And this problem, first of all, it would reduce the investment cost and improve local performance cost to this CMSC. But the cons side is basically that it has not as much advantages as the option 2. It will have only limited capacity to reduce the shipment and limited capacity to improve total inventory level. So for that reason, we decided to go for option 2, and we're going to give you, you're just going to explain to you the rationale behind this recommendation.
Thank you, Aurelia. I'll be talking about our analysis. We have to solve two problems. One is premium shipment. The other one is holding on inventory. These data are the each 16th and 16th CMSC's premium flight frequency and days of holding inventory. The data shows the problems in west area, so we decided to focus on west area problem. First problem is reducing their shipment cost. So basically, Easton uses two types of transportation. One is truck, and the other one is air. They use truck as the basic majority of shipment. It means if there are no problem, basically they use truck. On the other hand, if they have problem or emergency, they use air shipment. Let me explain more detail. The graph is the data of sub-axis. X-axis is the month. The light blue is inventory. Dark blue is cost of goods sold. Black one is percentage of air shipment. It means air shipment divided by total shipment. Basically, the inventory level is higher than cost of goods sold. So therefore, they can satisfy the customer demand. However, for example, in November, inventory level is high, but cost of goods sold level is very low, but the air shipment level is high. So on average, we cannot solve the problem why the air shipment level is high. So we assume the daily inventory level, daily demand, daily customer demand are fluctuated, so they have to use air shipment. To solve the problem, we assume if Eaton can achieve 100% service level, they do not have to use air shipment. It means service level equals 1 minus air shipment divided by total shipment. So this is our concept to analyze data. Based on the concept, we analyze the current inventory. The figure shows the inventory model. Easton has some amount of safety stock, and periodically they order inventory. So, and the red figure shows, for example, Los Angeles SAT's December data. Inventory is 1,400, cost sometimes the stock inventory cannot respond the standard deviation. I think these are the big problem. Next speaker is Bayu talking about our solution.
Thank you, Eugene. As Eugene mentioned, the biggest problem here is the high level of standard deviation of the demand. And it leads to, you have to provide the high safety stock. So in this case, we choose option 2 to build a big warehouse in West region. And at the same time, we will adopt the pooling system. So in this case, as you might see, the current system now, you have a high level of inventory in each CMSC. And now you want to reduce the safety stock, and you have to create one big warehouse in the West region. So actually safety stock is depend on the amount of standard deviation, the number of warehouse, and also the service level. So by adopting the pooling system, you will reduce the standard deviation of the total supply chain. The number here is, you will reduce by square root of n. So n is the number of warehouse. We assume that the n is the standard deviation of each warehouse is the same. So by doing the calculation and implementing the pooling system, we can save. First is the purchase order by premium shipping. We can reduce from 3.8 million to 2.4 million. In this case, we also increase the service level from 89% to 94%. The 90% is based on the targeted service level from the other different regions in the east and also in the south area. At the same time, we also reduce the portion purchase order by premium shipping from 11% to 6%. This save a lot of cost by 36%. So at the same time, we also reduce the days of inventory in the whole supply chain. So we will achieve the two targets, which are first, reduce the premium shipping cost, and also we will reduce the days of inventory from the whole supply chain. From the days of inventory from 40 days to 70 days. Now Ronaldo will talk about the strategy and action plan.
Thank you, Bayu. So we already know about our recommendation. We already saw about the number and the advantage. Now is the also most crucial things that is the implementation, because it's gonna determine if this project is gonna be success or not. We make in two periods. In short term, of course, we're gonna build a new projects and set up a pooling system, because we will have a new work pooling system. We will not use the safety stock in the CMC network. And in long term, we will also evaluate if this pooling system can be implemented in other regions, and also evaluate the CMC network based on the future demands. And this is our timetables. So in first years, we're gonna focus on the building the new warehouse and set up a new operating procedure manual for the new pooling inventories. In the second years, after we launch the beta projects, we're gonna focus on the monitoring, evaluation, and feedbacks. And in the long term, we're gonna do a feasible study if this can be implemented on the other regions, and also evaluate the needs of a new CMCTS. And also, our second option, they have many pros and cons. That's why we want to address these issues. The first issue is about the responsiveness. It's true, if we choose the first option, we're gonna have more responsive to the demands. But it doesn't mean that the new warehouse, we will reduce the responsiveness to the customer. Because we can focus on customer relationships, CMC now can be more focused on customers, and the best thing is with pooling is single point of contact. First, CMC, when they want to have inventory, they must contact the plants. If the two major plants don't have the inventory, they must look for other resource. But with single point of contact, they just contact the new warehouse, the pooling inventories. Second, the investment cost. We're gonna have a high investment cost at the first or the second years, but the trade-off is because we have lower inventory, we have an annual cost saving every year from the transportation and from the holding costs. And then the last one is migrating to the pooling system. This is gonna be hard because we're gonna change how people work. We must make them to get used to how the new pooling systems. That's why the mitigation, we must have coordination 6 months before the beta projects. And then after the launch, we must have a periodic monitoring, feedback and evaluation. And also, we must also control the information so we can have a new polling system right away. This is the end of our presentation. Thank you for the attention. Any question and question?
So there's currently a warehouse in Los Angeles, right, W87? So this is a second one, or you tear that one down, or how does that work, and what does this one do that this other one didn't do?
We want to add the new one, additional.
Additional one.
Yeah, but we'll do, like, to make it more efficient, it doesn't make sense to have two warehouses in two different parts of Los Angeles, so the idea will to build it next to the other one. It would, like, if we had to destroy and expand the one, it means that the activity in the meanwhile, since the utilization rate is already 90%, it will be hard to continue the activity and expand the warehouse, so we're going to build it next to this one, a big warehouse to gather all the area.
Did you have any projections in the price tag for that new warehouse?
You mean, just like, for instance,
How
what's
much
the
would it
cost of
cost?
building the warehouse
Yes.
and the renting?
The one thing that we calculate is the capacity of the warehouse. So the capacity of the warehouse is more or less is 2 million of total products, because we don't have the price of each product. So we assume that it's 10 times bigger than your DBNs in Dallas. So in Dallas we have the DBN, which is 200,000, and now we want to create a big warehouse to support the West region 10 times bigger than Dallas.
It's the same size of currently each side of warehouse. So actually we didn't calculate the budget, but it's the same budget of the current east warehouse.
Sure, I'm just trying to understand the save benefit versus the cost benefit to enter into something like this. So would I need to ask for $1 million, $2 million? And then what would my payback be for that capital investment, so to speak?
We don't calculate that far because we don't have the data for the financial. But we agree that we have the saving constant every annual from the holding cost and the lower transportation. So you reduce the holding cost by toolings, and you reduce the transportation, especially the air shipment, because it's gonna be costly. So, and one other thing that usually if in the west region, if you order air shipment, it's gonna be 1 to 2 days using air. But now, if you order to the poolings, it's also gonna be 1 to 2 days, but using the ground shipment, not using air. So you're gonna have a saving cost from there.
So you save costs with this, and also you will be able to have better responsiveness, so you can answer more demand, so you can sell more product, have more margin, make more profit. So we didn't I don't have data because we would require to do lots of assumptions, and we used a lot of assumptions to do all the calculation, but at some point we were like, okay, we can do the big picture, but then at some point we have to stop doing assumptions because then it's a completely fictional story. But we thought by building a new warehouse, you can have a lower utilization rate of the other warehouses, better answer to demand, have a lower inventory level of the different CMSC in this area, and also we decided not to rent a warehouse but to build it, because on the long term you will have amortization of this warehouse, and then you will be able to save the cost in the long run. The demand, as they were saying, the local companies like Google, etc., Facebook, they're usually on the West Coast, and they ask for more. The demand is increasing for those companies, and they want a high responsiveness. So we're going to bring those people in because we're going to be more responsive. So we're going to bring more profit because of this, and this is the main idea. We didn't quantify it because we didn't have enough numbers to base it, but on the strategic level, it's really the good solution rather than just improve a plant or something like this.
We calculate the profit. So after this discussion, if Ito give me the data of initial investment in the warehouse, we can calculate net present value.
Now a question. I was reading an article where they mentioned that a lot of companies prefer to build their warehouses not in LA, a little outside like Nevada, so that they have that lower cost, but then they are able to reach to LA within 1 day. So did you explore an option like that, building somewhere on the outside, get a lower cost, but still you can hit that flexibility level that you're looking at?
One reason is the Ito has already warehouse in LA, so it will decrease the total overhead cost. Second reason is yes, the transportation cost is very crucial. So the distance will decrease because of the LA's demand is very high. So the distance from warehouse in CMA is crucial. So we decided